Hello, you aggressive cucks and micro-penises. This is the Alpha Red Pill here, all proclamating to you how so much better I am, knowing that Rogue One is clearly a movie about white nationalism and that we should actually dump the movie per se. It's just too easy. The joke makes itself, like how all black people commit crimes. Yep, it's that time again, folks. If you've been under the idea that only the leftists have the best false stories and propaganda to spill, then might I take you to a time in the late 1980s and early 1990s when Republicans and conservatives the world over threw their wrinkly fists in the air about how violent video games are or how music is infecting the youth with turning away from Jesus or whatnot. Even if that time has passed, they still know how to jump on the moral busybody train just as well as at SJW, just with a slight change of terms. So this, we make a little trip over to Rogue one of my favorite movies of last year, just managing to surpass Kubo and the Two Strings is my favorite. For not only saying its own story realistically in the world of Star Wars without resorting to straight up fan service, I'm looking at you, Force Awakens, but also complement what would lead up to the story of A New Hope. Not to mention that fucking Darth Vader scene wrecking face on those rebels. Holy shit. That's some Godzilla level awesome, which is ironic given the person directing the movie. Anyhow, alt-right user Jack Posobiec, a term that I've accustomed to some throwaway buzzword that SJWs use as a label on top of the usual screeches of misogynist or bigot, made claims that the screenwriters of Rogue One completely flipped the script on the movie after Donald Trump's victory in order to make the movie a anti-Trump sentiment. I watched the movie myself, and I have no clue where or when that was evident, especially given the petty nature of doing something like that, not to mention that the movie was already being filmed months before the general election. But people who naturally loathe SJWs took this as an opportunity to hashtag dump Star Wars for the misnomer based on nothing but his word and word alone. Where he got this information is sketchy at best and dishonest at worst, but he isn't necessarily half wrong. No, the screenwriters didn't change the script of Rogue One after Trump's victory, but they did peddle some virtue signaling nonsense after the fact, with the whole safety pin nonsense that trended on Twitter, the most virtue signaling of them all. But of course, details like that are just so hard to fill in a narrow slot of narrow-mindedness, so once again, we get to see the two ideologies clash valiantly over who can propel their lie the best. The right claim that their boycott failed the movie, as it had about 300 million less than the box office domestic of Force Awakens, despite that movie having much more time to debut and actually being a successor from the sixth movie, and the left claimed that nothing but white nationalist, neo-Nazi, anti-women people were behind the popularity of hashtag dumb Star Wars. As with my previous sode on Fury Road, I will be digging into two different sides of the coin. LGBTQ Nation, if that doesn't already speak volumes of their bias, obviously touting the left side of the ring, and the people who sided with hashtag dumb Star Wars under false pretense serving for the right. Who will emerge victorious in the ring of ideological dogma? Let's start with LGBTQ Nation's cry. Star Wars Against Hate campaign sparks hashtag dump Star Wars boycott by Don Ennis. This is only half true. The dump Star Wars hashtag was actually started when Chris Weitz made the claim that the Empire was a white supremacist organization after Trump's victory, which is also half true. See, the Empire was molded under the allegory of Nazi Germany, such as you can tell from the resemblance of the helmets that Darth Vader and the Stormtroopers wear compared to the helmets that the SS wore. Although Nazi Germany was never a white supremacist organization and more of a Aryan supremacist organization, because them being a white supremacist organization would fly in the face of the many white Jews that Nazi Germany killed and tortured during World War II and some years before. Jack Posobiec himself made the hashtag under the claim that the movie changed its script based on Trump's victory, with no evidence but the claim made by Chris Weitz, followed by another screenwriter who said that it was being fought back by a multicultural team of strong women. More like women, assuming that he's not counting Mon Mothma or Princess Leia, who had little screen time in said movie. As you can tell, this is already muddied waters, kind of in the same vein as Fury Road, despite none of said belief ever translating into the movie itself. But anyhow, let's see if LGBTQ Nation will at least try to get the story straight. 1 week before the premiere of the much-anticipated film, Rogue One, a Star Wars story, the suits at Disney no doubt have had a bad feeling about this. A boycott organized by Trump supporters in the same vein as the actions they've launched against Kellogg's, the Hamilton musical, and Starbucks. Did Disney really anticipate backlash on this? I don't think they can control what other screenwriters think or believe at the opportune moment. Certainly that is not what you are implying. After Starbucks, Hamilton, and Kellogg's, can we get them to boycott Oxygen or water next? So far since they've won, the We Don't Need Safe Spaces party has boycotted a play, a cereal brand, and a movie for being mean. Deciding not to endorse or adhere to a certain product or item is not the same as demanding a safe space from it or demanding it be removed, right? At least the conservatives on this side are being more proactive in that they know that other people aren't going to act the same way that they are, but making their own decision not to support something. Whereas people like you are sure to remind everyone how much of an ist they are by supporting something that you don't. So get off of your high horses. This latest boycott began just about a month ago, following the election of Donald Trump, when one of the Rogue One screenwriters publicly praised an article that compared the plot of the movie to the current political situation. Chris Weitz then tweeted, "Please note that the Empire is a white supremacist, human organization." And he had to pull that shit down because of the bad timing on Chris White's part, and that he wasn't exactly being honest about the allegory behind it. Apparently, the original screenplay for Rogue One, like the one during the 70s, was also an allegory for the Vietnam War, where the Empire was America and the rebels were the Viet Cong. Oops, sorry if mentioning a historical opposition is too triggering for some. Anyhow, while things certainly can be inspired by political or religious context, hell, if you look at the Chronicles of Narnia correctly, you can see Aslan as fucking Jesus. This does not mean that a movie has to be politicized as a result. Fury Road was definitely aware that people didn't want a political message shoved down their throat in a movie that could be less concerned about it. People wanted that good old Australian post-apocalyptia that made classics out of The Road Warrior and Thunderdome. As for Rogue One, I didn't know what I was getting myself into watching it, but having seen it, it is a well-done, awesome setup for the story of A New Hope that I would dare say my father, having grown up watching them, would enjoy watching. Gary Whitta, the original writer of the film, responded with this tweet, opposed by a multicultural group of brave women. Actor Mark Hamill, who is and always will be Luke Skywalker, and who has stated it's entirely possible his character is gay, shared White's anti-hate message with his Twitter followers. Yet, I'm starting to think Mark Hamill is only saying that so he doesn't face pressure from the liberal media to slap him with the heteronormativity badge on his forehead, despite that in parts of the original trilogy you can see that Luke does share a kiss with Leia. This is also before even knowing that she was his sister. And judging from how the plot of The Force Awakens is going, I'm almost sure that Rey is Luke's daughter. And guess what, you gender-neutral bigots? You can't give birth to someone by fucking a dude in the ass. Although, to his credit, Mark did say it was possible and not an inevitability. Hamill also told the Daily Beast, if you look at what's being assembled for our government, it's like, yikes! It's a who's who of really despicable people. I wonder if he's talking about Hillary Clinton in this context. We shall never know. Speaking of despicable, the President-elect's White House chief strategist Steve Bannon himself made a case for the Trump Empire comparison in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, saying, darkness is good. Dick Cheney, Darth Vader, Satan. That's power. Does anyone else smell moving the burden of proof in this article, or is it just me? I don't give a shit about what this Steve Bannon guy says, since he's going to be kicked in the curb for Trump's chief strategist of choice. So if anything, it just sounds like Obama's cabinet gained sour grapes over not being able to have a dynasty over the electorate's choices. Doesn't that sound more like the empire than Trump's call for populist revolution? As complaints from the racist white supremacist element of America that calls itself the alt-right poured in, Whitta and Wheat soon deleted their tweets, but not before he and Whites changed their Twitter avatars to that rebellion logo with the safety pin. That too did not last, but the message was received, and Trump supporters started spreading rumors that following the election, the film's ending had been reshot. Here's where the other shoe drops. While it is true that the rumor was falsified, I can't really give those people much flack for stirring the rumor, as we have seen countless times diversity quotas being forced into movies where such a thing should be irrelevant, and where screenwriters' own personal beliefs are not separated into a movie about bashing monsters in the face or something equivalent to it. At least in the case of Widow and Wheats, they were able to keep their personal beliefs from entrenching a movie about receiving the Death Star plans, at least halfway. The diversity quota was still met with the main cast of characters, not one of which is just a plain white American sounding person. Not to say that it would have made the movie better or worse, it just speaks volumes of the heedless identity politics that has infiltrated many movies that would have been great if not setting their toes in cement. As for the reaction being wholly outright, once again, I'm not taking your word for it. When you use alt-right, that term is so categorically misused that to call someone alt-right is like a conservative calling me a Satan worshiper. Whites called the reports fake. It didn't matter, as the hashtag dumb Star Wars hashtag calling for a boycott spread on Reddit and Twitter. Neo-Nazis and white supremacists didn't start hating on the franchise with Rogue One, of course. The actors cast in Star Wars Episode 7, The Force Awakens, raised hackles because John Boyega and Daisy Ridley landed the lead roles. Boyega is black, Ridley is a woman. Rogue One stars actress Felicity Jones in the lead role. Okay, you do understand the connotation behind it, right? You aren't going to declare that these people were rallying over a movie simply because the main character was a woman or black, are you? J.J. Abrams himself complained that there was just too many damn whiteys in Hollywood, and to obstruct that, he put two people of which had no prior experience in acting beforehand in the movie for the sake of diversity in a movie that is already diverse in terms of the species line. See, this is where your personal diversity quota gets in the way of making a fun or exciting successor to the previous entry. Once again, it wasn't just neo-Nazis or white supremacists disliking the decision to force diversity into everything. I didn't like that either, because what it essentially speaks on Hollywood's part is that having quality actors play fulfilling roles comes second to virtue signaling to your audience of choice. Do you think the creators of Blade were looking for a black character merely for diversity, or that the character of Blade in canon was black, and that Wesley Snipes filled the role so neatly that he was indistinguishable from the character himself? The latter is more true than the former. 2 feminist propaganda Star Wars movies in a row, and Mark Hamill says Luke Skywalker may be gay. Time to hashtag dumb Star Wars by Mike Dice. They are brainwashing kids into hating white men, one Reddit user whined. All the villains are white, and all the good guys are minorities and women. More on that brainwashing and white men in a moment. Pretty hard pressed these days to find any form of media content that isn't blatantly anti-white, or anti-capitalist for that matter, posted another. The haters' boycott has inspired some to say it would only make their movie-going experience better. Let the hate flow through you. Although, when I saw the cries of Fury Road being feminist propaganda, it wanted me to go see it more just to see if it was true, not exactly that if it was true, and all the better for it. So in a way, I could see how these anti-Rogue One people shot themselves in the foot for giving the movie free promotion. Neo-Nazis call for boycott of Rogue One, calling it a Jew masturbation fantasy of anti-white hatred. Man, I had no idea it was that good. If Star Wars, an obvious allegory about Nazism, feels like an attack on your candidate, the problem isn't with Star Wars. False dichotomy all around. People aren't upset that the movie thinks it's attacking their candidate because the original was an allegory for Nazism. They are upset that the movie thinks it's attacking their candidate because of the untimely manner of Chris Weitz and Gary Whitta both making their virtue signaling call just days after Trump's victory. Yes, that isn't Star Wars' problem, because that isn't present, but it's also not their problem either. And this has come from the constant repeated excess of diversity mongoloids infecting media with needless calls for multiculturalism, from Ghostbusters to Civil War's actors promoting Hillary under vagina. This is a natural response to the politicized nature of media as a whole, and you thinking that it's just some kind of hotbed of bigotry is pulling yet more fire under your own ass for making the whole scene politicized in the first place. Trump cakes are boycotting Star Wars, which means your chance of getting shot in the movie theater just decreased by 97%. Enjoy! If hashtag dumb Star Wars people are mad that Star Wars is anti-Nazi, just wait until they learn about Indiana Jones, Casablanca, and The Sound of Music. Okay, So I don't know if the first tweet is supposed to be a joke that the stormtroopers are shit at aiming, or that white people don't get shot by police as often as blacks do, but the if of people being mad over it being anti-Nazi most certainly is not. Nazis are the easiest punching bag in terms of moral ambiguity, being absolutely evil to the point that killing them as zombies in video games and in movies is perfectly alright because Nazis are the ultimate force that has no moral ambiguity whatsoever. Oh, we were following orders. Oh, there were Jews in the SS. None of that quashes killing 2/3 of the Jewish population in Europe at the time. And so that was that with LGBTQ Nation, an otherwise slathering of the neo-Nazi paint on those concerned with needless diversity in politics in a movie about shooting shit in space. Now let's find some juicy dumb Star Wars tweeters and hear their calls on the movie. Jose Gonzalez says, congrats to Cernovich and Jack Posoybic for their successful dumb Star Wars boycott of Rogue One, with the aforementioned failure being that Rogue One only made $450 million as compared to no monies. Yeah, what a failure that is, huh? You know what actually was a failure and didn't need to have some hashtag behind it? Ghostbusters 2016, with $150 million on a movie that cost $150 million to make. Deplorablelos says, with an attached tweet by Patriot God, nobody knows how much Rogue One would have had we not decided to dump Star Wars. Very big loss, Hollywood, believe me. Nobody knows how much Rogue One lost because nobody cared. Rogue One made its money back and then some. It is still very much a profitable movie that I'm sure will rake in $200 million more once the DVD for the movie comes out. I'm sure Hollywood is really, really sad that they won't be seeing those $6 you would have put into watching it. I'm going to add a leftist tweet slant here since this one is beautiful. Angie Manfredi says, so you can see that whole hashtag dumb Star Wars thing started by racist, misogynist, neo-Nazi MRA cryberries went real well. While it failed to halt any box office gains, I think you are more convinced that it failed because of the 19 adjectives you put behind the people behind the hashtag, aren't you? How about if I said that the feminist, regressive, leftist, beta ideologues tried to kick Sing to the curb, but look how that went. See? They aren't the only ones who get their panties up in a bunch about movies. Nothing but the truth says, I can't believe libtards are still triggered by dumb Star Wars. It's like they live in their own bubble of stupidity. As far as I can tell, the libtards in question are sitting pretty knowing that the campaign didn't work as planned, with denials by those still touting that dumb Star Wars succeeded despite the box office gross. Sounds like the people in dumb Star Wars are living in a bubble of their own stupidity, especially when the only validity that dumb Star Wars has is one of the screenwriters saying that the Empire is a supremacist organization, and allow me to finally bring up said hating white men in Star Wars. So remember how in A New Hope, how all the movies in the original trilogy, every single officer of the Empire was white, a white male even? Is that now considered hating white men because of the prevalence of such? No, because the good guys are 3 white men, a woman, and some fucking robots and a Chewbacca. Being evil is not tied to being white per se, and I'm sure that the choice to have that many white men play officers of the Empire was more to do with either continuing with the allegory of Nazi Germany onward, or the fact that white people being a majority demographic, you're going to find more white people up for the job as a imperial officer. I highly doubt that the inclusion of Krennic and Grand Moff Tarkin was made to make a point that all white men are evil, unlike Ghostbusters, because Grand Moff Tarkin had a presence in A New Hope, and his evil had nothing to do with him being white. I mean, look at this fucking guy. His soulless eyes and just casual smirk at the destruction of mankind already speaks to you that he sold his soul to the devil upon multiple times. As for Krennic, he's a new factor in the movie, but for all the attempt to make him evil, he's a bumbling lieutenant who thinks he doesn't get the credit he deserves for creating the Death Star, as Grand Moff Tarkin and Darth Vader slap his little behind with some discipline. As for the Stormtroopers, since we never see their faces, them being white is just convenience for someone to say that this is white bashing when the armor can be affixed onto anyone, including women and people of color. So with this, I conclude another pitting of 2 tribes as they try to get their bullshit totem to cut through the sky. The facts get tossed for accusation after another, as I try to enjoy Rogue One for what it is, rather than what people think it is.